Hey everybody, word of advice. When your creepy scientist father tells you to stay out of the basement, you better do it, or he's going to turn you into a weird plant clone. Today, stay out of the basement. Everybody, grab your books, grab your drinks and your snacks, and let's get goosebumps. Hey everyone, it's Ryno and welcome back to Let's Get Goosebumps. We today are doing number 2, Stay Out of the Basement. If you're not familiar, this is the series where we are going to try and read all 62 of the original R.L. Stine Goosebumps classics in the year 2022 to celebrate the 30th anniversary. And like I said, today is number 2. I don't know about you if you out there are reading it from the library or past copies or anything like that, but what's been fun for me is as I'm going through the books, I'm realizing I have left things inside of them from when I was like a kid. So like there's this like bookmark that says ticketed to read on here, the 1994 statewide summer reading program, and then there was also this like it's, I don't know what it is. It says lower your risk, and it's an arrow that points down. It leads me to believe it's for like cholesterol or heart disease, but I'm assuming it was like a dare officer thing or anything like that. But I clearly drew on it, and it says on it, I like to read, and I drew a picture of a Goosebumps book that says Ghost Beach. So that must be what I was reading when I like took it and shoved it in this book. And then there's also a bookmark in here that says Sail on a Sea of Books, 1993 statewide summer reading program. On the back it says Ryan. So I was like really into Goosebumps. So there was also this other envelope that says Ryan C in it, and I have a feeling it's it's like Valentine's Day cards from my like second grade like class. Oh my god, this is hilarious. This is so great. I love it. There's a Sylvester, you're really thumping special Valentine's Day card from Melissa Harris. I remember Melissa well. This is so funny. I don't remember being in the same class as Melissa, I don't think, but that's fine. I don't think I would remember everybody. Ooh, there's one with the genie on it. You make wishes come true. That one's from Alicia. That is, and then I have the, who did I say this bear one was from? This Valentine's Day one. It says, it's Valentine's Day. Oh, that was, Heather or something like that on the back there. But then there's like a note that says, Ryan, I'm going to assume this is from the teacher. I just dropped a piece of paper under here, under my desk, and we're going to leave it there because the listening people just couldn't care less. Oh my God, there's a Ren and Stimpy. This says 1993. I'm glad to tag you as a friend on Valentine's Day. Oh, like they're explorers, because I was like, tag you? How are they using this vernacular? It says, oh my god, on the back it says, read any good Goosebumps books lately? Happy Valentine's Day from Jen Keemont. Jen, I remember you well. Thank you so much for the Valentine's Day card. That is hilarious. I used to be the type of kid who couldn't like settle on what he was going to read. So I would bring like 10 books to school with me. I was weird like that. I know there's probably other people out there, but somebody gave me a Kevin Reese Dolphins card. It says, you're tough, buddy. Wrong tree. So anyway, no, that's so great. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I love little relics like that. They're like, these should have ended up in like a dumpster or something like that. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, my past. I remember. I feel like Robin Williams in Hook when he gets hit in the head with the baseball and he starts remembering his the kids and everything like that. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about our love of Goosebumps. And this Goosebumps books, I keep calling them Goosebumps, like they're some sort of designer heel that for like horror fans or something like that. But should we trademark that and go into business together and do that? Maybe. But this is Stay Out of the Basement, number 2. This is July 1992 is the original release date. This one is 122 pages. We've got original cover art by Jim Thiessen on this one. And apparently, according again to the Goosebumps wiki, this is one of 2 of the original cover releases where the artwork was not done by Tin Tim Jacobus, who did, however, do the artwork for the 2003 re-release of the book, which that's the one where like it's the plant scientist monster on it, if you remember that one. But the other one that he didn't do was the Be Careful What You Wish For. I like remember pieces of that one. I can't wait to get to that one. But this one does have an episode of the show, so at the end we're going to talk about it. It's a 2-part episode of the TV show. The cover tagline here is "Something's waiting in the dark." Very vague. I also like never stop thinking about this hand on the doorway. This plant hand that's like gross and scary. On the back it says "Live Plants." Oh, I can't read. It says "Live Plants, Dead People." Dr. Brewer is doing a little plant testing in his basement. Nothing to worry about. Harmless, really. But Margaret and Casey Brewer are worried about their father, especially when they meet some of the plants he is growing down there. Then they notice that their father is developing plant-like tendencies. In fact, he is becoming distinctly weedy and seedy. Is it just part of their father's harmless experiments, or has the basement turned into another little shop of horrors? Reader beware, you're in for a scare. Also available from R.L. Stine, Goosebumps. Goosebumps. Monster Blood. I literally read the wrong word. Anyway, yeah, this book, here we go. Let's just hop right in. So we just said the main characters, Margaret and Casey Brewer. I gotta say, right away here, it started off feeling a little weird because I had to go back and look, but the first book is in first person and this one is in third person. And apparently of the first couple of books switch back and forth, but I believe like it levels out and becomes mainly first person, I think, after that. But it took me for a second. I was like, oh, weird. But Margaret and Casey Brewer are playing Frisbee outside. They invite their father, Dr. Brewer, to play with them, but he declines their invitation as he has to work. He's got important work to do in the basement. Formerly, Dr. Brewer was a specialized botanist, but he's been recently fired from his workplace, and now Dr. Brewer is doing experiments in the basement. It's interesting that these kids are in a new place as well. Supposedly, like they say, they haven't lived there that long. Like they had moved there so the dad could work where he had been fired, which I think was at a university or something. But, cause like the first book is it's like a fish out of water. It's like that adds a little bit to the like nervousness of it, I guess, or the unrest of it. But yeah. Oh, sorry. They talk about it on actually page 4 right here. They say, where is it here? I don't want to like highlight and write in my book, so I just put index cards in it because I'm very weird like that. But if it had been like a brand new book, I probably would have highlighted it. I don't know. It's weird. When I was a senior in high school, they were like, you should write in the margins and highlight or whatever. And I was like, in a book? Are you insane? But okay. How come Dad got fired? He asked. She blinked and stopped running. The question had caught her by surprise. Huh? His pale, freckled face turned serious. You know, I mean, why? He asked, obviously uncomfortable. She and Casey had never discussed this in the 4 weeks since Dad had been home, which was unusual since they were pretty close, being only a year apart. I mean, we came all the way out here so he could work at Polytech, right? Casey asked. Yeah, well, he got fired, Margaret said, half whispering in case her dad might be able to hear. But why? Did he blow up the lab or something? Casey grinned. The idea of his dad blowing up a huge campus science lab appealed to him. No, he didn't blow anything up, Margaret said, tugging at a strand of her dark hair. Botanists work with plants, you know. They don't get much of a chance to blow things up. They both laughed. Casey followed her into the narrow strip of shade cast by the low ranch-style house. I'm not sure exactly what happened, Margaret continued, still half whispering, but I overheard Dad on the phone. I think he was talking to Mr. Martinez, his department head. Remember, the quiet little man who came to dinner that night the barbecue grill caught on fire? Casey nodded. Martinez fired Dad? Probably, Margaret whispered. From what I overheard, it had something to do with the plants Dad was growing. Some experiments that had gone wrong or something. But Dad's real smart, Casey insisted, as if Margaret were arguing with him. If this experiments went wrong, he'd know how to fix them. Margaret shrugged. That's all I know, she said. Come on, Casey, let's go inside. I'm dying of thirst. She stuck her tongue out and moaned, demonstrating her dire need of liquid. This entire conversation is basically the setup for the whole book, but this is where I started to realize where I was like, is this in third person? But Yeah, anyway, Margaret and Casey are in the house and they've decided they want to go check out what their father is doing in the basement. So on page 7, it says, boop, boop, boop. Sorry, I like where I say to read is always in the weirdest parts. Okay, here it is. Let's go down and see what Dad is doing, he suggested. Margaret sucked the last drops of juice through the straw and squeezed the empty box flat in her hand. Okay. She knew they probably shouldn't disturb their father, but her curiosity got the better of her. He had been working down there for 4 weeks now. All kinds of interesting equipment, lights and plants had been delivered. Most days he spent at least 8 or 9 hours down there doing whatever he was doing, and he hadn't shown it to them once. Yeah, let's go down, Margaret said. It was their house too, after all. Besides, maybe their dad was just waiting for them to show some interest. Maybe he was hurt that they didn't bother. I am tongue-tied. Maybe he was hurt that they hadn't bothered to come downstairs in all this time. She pulled the door open the rest of the way, and they stepped into the narrow stairway. Hey, Dad, Casey called excitedly. Dad, can we see? Can we see? They were halfway down when their father appeared at the foot of the stairs. He glared up at them angrily, his skin strangely green under the fluorescent light fixture. He was holding his right hand, drops of red blood falling onto his white lab coat. Stay out of the basement, he bellowed in a voice they'd never heard before. Both kids shrank back, surprised to hear their father scream like that. He was usually so mild and soft-spoken. Stay out of the basement, he repeated, holding his bleeding hand. Don't ever come down here. I'm warning you. Okay. Great guy. Sometime later, Mrs. Brewer is forced to travel to Tucson to visit her sister Eleanor, who has been hospitalized. Dr. Brewer takes Mrs. Brewer to the airport, giving Margaret, Casey, and their friend Diane an opportunity to go down into the basement and investigate Dr. Brewer's strange experiments. Upon entering, they find a wide variety of gigantic green plants, some of which seem to be bearing fruits. Due to the intense humidity of the basement, Casey takes off his shirt and sets it down. The 3 kids begin to hear a breathing sound coming from several plants. The plants seem to be beckoning the kids with their tendrils. The kids decide they've seen enough and they leave the basement at the same time Dr. Brewer returns home. But that's when Casey remembers that he forgot his shirt and goes back to the basement to find it, only to hear the plants breathing and groaning. The chapter was a little weird because it's actually the only chapter in the book that I think it was, where the narrative shifts from Margaret to Casey. And the rest of the time, it's really just from Margaret's kind of perspective. It's like that third person. Is it third person limited? Is that what it is? Versus third person omniscient? I can't remember. But anyway, so Casey's down there. He's looking for his shirt. All of a sudden, plant arms around his waist. Well, not arms, they're tendrils, but they've wrapped around his waist. Margaret comes down to help him and manages to free him. But while they're walking up the stairs of the basement, they find their father looking down at them. Wah, wah. Calmly, Dr. Brewer sits his children in the kitchen and tells them that one day he'll explain everything that is happening, but until that day, they are forbidden from entering the basement. And later, Margaret discovers that her father has begun placing a lock on the basement door here. On Saturday afternoon, Mrs. Brewer calls Margaret by telephone. By telephone, as one does. She informs Margaret that she must stay in Tucson for a few more days because Eleanor's operation did not go as expected. Taking advantage of this moment, Margaret tells her mother about the strange plants and experiments in the basement. Margaret informs Mrs. Brewer that Dr. Brewer is now wearing a baseball cap all the time. So after hanging up the phone, Margaret goes to the kitchen, and this is when she sees her father essentially inhaling something from a plastic bag. It's nasty. When he leaves, she discovers that he was eating plant food. Margaret tells Casey what happened, but he refuses to believe her. And a few days later, the kids are playing Frisbee again, and Dr. Brewer is outside, and the kids accidentally bop him in the head with the Frisbee, knock his hat off, and he's got plants. Plants are growing out of his head for hair. So Dr. Brewer sits them down again and explains that the leaves are only a side effect of his experiment. So if we go to the top of page 56 here, I wrote the top of page 56 and then I wrote a line to start on, and it's clearly not here. Oh, yeah, it is. I'm sorry. It's literally like the first sentence. I'm awful at this. I've been so wrapped up in my experiments, I haven't had much time to talk to you. You haven't had any time, Margaret corrected him. I'm sorry, he said, lowering his eyes. I really am. But this work I'm doing is so exciting and so difficult. Did you discover a new kind of plant? Casey asked, crossing his legs beneath him. No, I'm trying to build a new kind of plant, Dr. Brewer explained. Huh? Casey explained. Have you ever talked about DNA in school? Their father asked. They shook their heads. Well, it's pretty complicated, he continued. Dr. Brewer thought for a moment. Let me try to put it in simple terms, he said, fiddling with the bandage around his hand. Let's say we took a person who had a very high IQ. You know, real brain power. Like me, Casey interrupted. Casey, shut up, Margaret said edgily. A real brain like Casey, Dr. Brewer said agreeably. And let's say we were able to isolate the molecule or gene or tiny part of that gene that enabled that person to have such high intelligence. And then let's say we're able to transmit it into other brains, and then this brain power could be passed along from generation to generation, and lots of people would have a high IQ. You understand? He looked first at Casey, then at Margaret. Yeah, kind of, Margaret said. You take a good quality from one person and put it into other people, and then they have that good quality too, and they pass it on to their children, and on and on and on. Very good, Dr. Brewer said, smiling for the first time in weeks. That's what a lot of botanists do with plants. They try to take the fruit-bearing building block from one plant and put it into another. Create a new plant that will bear 5 times as much fruit or 5 times as much grain or vegetables. And that's what you're doing? Casey asked. Not exactly, their father said, lowering his voice. I'm doing something a little more unusual. I really don't want to go into detail now, but I'll tell you that what I'm trying to do is build a kind of plant that has never existed and could never exist. I'm trying to build a plant that's part animal. Casey and Margaret stared at their father in surprise. Margaret was the first to speak. You mean you're taking cells from an animal and putting them into a plant? He nodded. I really don't want to say more. You two understand that this is why you understand why this must be kept secret. He turned his eyes on Margaret, then Casey, studying their reactions. How do you do it? Margaret asked, thinking hard about everything he had just told them. How do you get these cells from the animals to the plants? I'm trying to do it by breaking them down electronically, he answered. I have 2 glass booths connected by a power electron generator. You may have seen them when you were snooping around down there. He made a sour face. Yeah, they look like phone booths, Casey said. One booth is a sender and one is a receiver, he explained. I'm trying to send the right DNA, the right building blocks from one booth to the other. It's very delicate work. And have you done it? Margaret asked. I've come very close, Dr. Brewer said, a pleased smile crossing his face. The smile lasted only a few seconds, then his expression thoughtful. He abruptly climbed to his feet. Got to get back to work, he said quietly. See you two later. He started walking across the lawn, taking long strides. But Dad, Margaret called after him. She and Casey climbed to their feet too. Your head, the leaves, you didn't explain it, she said as she and her brother hurried to catch up to him. Dr. Brewer shrugged. Nothing to explain, he said curtly. Just a side effect. He adjusted his Dodgers cap. Don't worry about it. It's only temporary, just a side effect. Then he hurried into the house. This entire conversation is actually pretty interesting because thinking about when this book came out, it's about a year before the Jurassic Park movie had come out. And I feel like the Jurassic Park movie is the first movie like that I can remember as a kid that really had DNA as being like a big, massive part of the plot. But then it also goes on to sound a little bit more like that Jeff Goldblum Fly movie from the 80s, which I'm sure has got to be in a little bit of an inspiration in some way. But I love that too, because I love that movie. I'm sorry, I just lost my place in my notes. So anyway, we'll get back to where we were. Dr. Brewer finished up the chat. He runs off to the basement again. That night, Margaret spies her father in the bathroom, watching as he removes the bandages from his hand, revealing bright green blood instead of red blood. And honestly, it's a little graphic, at least in my imagination it was. So I'm just going to read that description. It's on the bottom of page 62. He was concentrating on the bandage on his hand. Using small scissors, he cut the bandage, then pulled it off. The hand was still bleeding, Margaret saw. Or was it? What was that dripping from the cut on her father's hand? Still holding her breath, she watched him wash it off carefully under the hot water. Then he examined it. His eyes narrowed in concentration. After washing, the cut continued to bleed. Margaret stared hard, trying to better focus her eyes. It couldn't be blood, could it? It couldn't be blood dripping into the sink. It was bright green, she gasped and started to run back to her room. The floor creaked under her footsteps. Who's there? Dr. Brewer cried. Margaret? Casey? He poked his head into the hallway as Margaret disappeared back into her room. He saw me, she realized, leaping into her bed. He saw me, and now he's coming for me. Not technically as graphic, but I still kind of imagine just like green blood pouring out of the hand or something like that. But so anyway, she panics. She ran back to her room. Eventually, she goes down to the kitchen to have a glass of water. Margaret finds Casey, who also couldn't sleep, and both of the kids are going to listen again to the plant noises in the basement because it's getting like louder at this point, Before returning to her room, Margaret takes a small look at her father's room, discovering dirt and worms in his bed. I am going to read it. It's nasty. You'll actually remember it from the opening of the TV show, too. Page 70. What was that in the bed? Margaret clicked on a dresser lamp and stepped up beside the bed. Oh no, she cried, raising her hands to her face in horror. The bed sheet was covered with a thick layer of dirt, clumps of dirt. Margaret stared down at it, not breathing, not moving. The dirt was black and appeared to be moist. Ugh, I hate that word. And the dirt was moving. Moving? It can't be, Margaret thought. That's impossible. She leaned down to take a closer look at the layer of dirt. No, the dirt wasn't moving. The dirt was filled with dozens of moving insects and long brown earthworms, all crawling through the wet black clumps that lined her father's bed. You nasty. You nasty. The next morning, Margaret tells Casey what happened. Immediately, Dr. Brewer appears and tells them that he has prepared lunch for them. And this, God, it's like mashed up. The description described it as like mashed up green potatoes, but I don't know. I feel like it was like, in my brain, I'm imagining, have you ever had like spaghetti squash, but done as if it was like the pasta for spaghetti? That's what it feels like. It was like that, but like green and like almost like a seaweed salad, but one you wouldn't want to eat. He insists that they eat it. Fortunately, at this moment, saved by the doorbell, Mr. Martinez, who you may remember, Dr. Brewer's former boss, shows up for a visit, and he wants to discuss the experiments. So while their father is distracted, the kids throw the meal in the trash and say they've already eaten it. And now, life goes on. The two go downstairs. The kids go about their day. The next morning, Dr. Brewer leaves the house to help just randomly help the neighbor install a bathroom sink. So I imagine he's probably up to no good. But the kids decide this is another opportunity to go into the basement. And as soon as their father leaves, they remove the lock and enter. In the basement, they find Mr. Martinez's suit hidden near a table and realize that he never left the house after his visit yesterday. After a few minutes, the kids hear footsteps in the house and realize that their father has returned. So they flee from the basement through a small window that faces the backyard. However, they're discovered by Dr. Brewer. So this is like entire part is kind of crazy. So I'm going to read it. It's on page 92, and we're going to read from there to the end of the chapter, which is literally just a page and a half. Hold on. Let's see. Where were you two? Out in the backyard, Margaret said quickly. We came in when we heard the back door slam. Dr. Brewer scowled and shook his head. You never used to lie to me before, he said. I know you went down to the basement again. You left the door wide open. We just wanted to look, Casey said quietly, glancing at Margaret, his expression fearful. We found Mr. Martinez's jacket and tie, Margaret said. What happened to him, Dad? Huh? The question seemed to catch Dr. Brewer by surprise. Why did he leave his jacket and tie down there, Margaret asked. I'm raising two snoops, her father griped. Martinez got hot, okay? I have to keep the basement at a very high tropical temperature with lots of humidity. Martinez became uncomfortable. He removed his jacket and tie and put them down on the work table. Then he forgot them when he left. Dr. Brewer chuckled. I think he was in a state of shock from everything. I showed him down there. Wow, I took a weird pause in that sentence. It's no wonder he forgot his things, but I called Martinez this morning. I'm going to drive over and return his stuff when I finished at Mr. Henry's. Margaret saw a smile break out on Casey's face. She felt relieved, too. It was good to know that Mr. Martinez was okay. I cannot believe they just straight up believed him. How awful to suspect my own father of doing something terrible to someone, she thought. But she couldn't help herself. The fear returned every time she saw him. I'd better get going, Dr. Brewer said, carrying the tools he had picked up. He started toward the back door, but he stopped at the end of the hall and turned around. Don't go back in the basement, okay? It really could be dangerous. You could be very sorry. Margaret listened to the screen door slam behind him. Was that a warning or a threat? She wondered. The kids just believed their dad at this point, like point blank everything, like, oh, Okay, cool. Yeah, you haven't been suspicious or fishy or at all or anything like that this whole time. So, yeah, totally. So anyway, this the next chapter just starts off with Margaret biking with Diane in the hills on a different day. And also, I want to point out this one part that stuck out to me for some weird reason. It's so dumb, but it's just like not dumb like dumb writing or whatever. I don't know why it tickles me, but they had lunch at Diane's house, tomato soup and avocado salad, then wandered back to Margaret's house trying to figure out how to spend the rest of the beautiful afternoon. I'm sorry. Tomato soup and avocado salad in 1992? Okay, bougie business babies. I just am like, I don't think I even had an avocado until I was like 20 years old or something. I was something ridiculous, but I just think that's funny. Like, good for her. They're good for the two of them. Good for you, Diane, broadening her horizons. So back to the book. So Mrs. Brewer returns from Tucson, and this is Dr. Brewer's got to leave. He's got to go pick her up. So Margaret and Diane go out for a bike ride. Like I said, sorry. When they return, Casey tells them, no, I'm sorry. This is the next chapter. Diane's there again. But anyway, when they return, Casey tells them he wants to fly kites, but the kites are in the basement. The kids decide to return to the basement so they can look for the kites. So again, they're just like, oh yeah, whatever. We know the basement's all weird, but we got to go get those kites down there. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Let's just go get them. It'll be real quick, even though we've been warned repeatedly throughout this book not to go down there. Shockingly, they find the rest of Mr. Martinez's clothes, realizing that their father has lied to them. Wah, wah. Okay, so ultimately, I don't think that this chapter, that was chapter 16, like needed to happen, because the chapter 16 part, it's like 2 pages, and then they literally just end up in the basement finding Mr. Martinez's clothes again. So it was like, did the book have to be a certain number of pages and they just had to like add that in? I don't know. It was just it's weird because they literally end up in the exact same spot doing the exact same thing that they were doing just like 5 pages earlier, or less than that. But anyway, the kids are down there. They hear noises from a supply closet. When they open it, they find Dr. Brewer bound and gagged with plant tendrils. They untie him, and Dr. Brewer tells them that the one who went to the airport to pick up the mom isn't him. Instead, it's a hybrid plant clone created during the experiments. Dr. Brewer grabs an axe and waits for the clone to return. So Dr. Brewer's clone appears on the basement stairs. He tries to trick the kids into believing that their real father is the clone. However, when Margaret hears her father call her princess, which the clone never did, she gets an idea. Grabbing a knife, she makes a small cut on her father's hand, revealing red blood. And the real Dr. Brewer uses the axe and cuts the clone right in half, revealing bright green blood and a stem-like interior. Again, this part is like kind of crazy and a little intense. It's on page red 16, page 116. Margaret pulled the knife back, having made a tiny puncture hole. Red blood trickled from the hole. "He's our real dad," she told Casey, sighing relief. "Here, Dad." She handed him the axe. Margaret, "You're wrong," the man in the baseball cap cried in alarm. "He's tricked you. He's tricked you." The capless Dr. Brewer moved quickly. He picked up the axe, took 3 steps forward, pulled the axe back, and swung with all his might. The Dr. Brewer in the cap opened his mouth wide and uttered a hushed cry of alarm. The cry was choked off as the axe cut easily through his body, slicing him in two. A thick green liquid oozed from the wound, and as the man fell, his mouth locking open in disbelief and horror, Margaret could see that his body was actually a stem. He had no bones, no human organs. The body thudded to the floor. Green liquid puddled around it. My God, they just chopped that guy. I know it was a plant, but chopped him right in half, and there's plant blood everywhere. Like, it was great. I loved it. But yeah, so anyway, the kids hear more noises in the supply closet. Must be a massive supply closet. They find Mr. Martinez. He's bound and gagged as well. So they release him. And then like a week later, Dr. Brewer has burned all these plants, these mutant plants in the backyard. And he's planting a few into the garden. He tells Margaret and Casey that they'll stop doing experiments permanently, and the kids are walking back inside when this small flower on the ground brushes against Margaret's ankle, and when she bends down to look at it, the flower whispers to her, "Margaret, help me. I'm your real father." And that's kind of how it ends, and I love a good twist of an end like that, where you're like, oh no, what's going on? So my overall thoughts, I like the macabre ending, like I said, and I found it to be a little scarier than the first one. And I thought the use of like the basement and a plant, like the plant monsters, was good. I also like how it really left you not knowing if anyone was actually ever like really telling the truth. It was an interesting that the perspective, like I said, had switched that one time for that one chapter, but ultimately I thought it was a much scarier book that felt a little more evenly paced. And things were like kind of happening throughout the entire thing. It didn't feel like there was a lot of reflection on it. It just kind of kept moving forward. So it felt a lot more well-rounded and like a full-length story. So I very much enjoyed reading this one. I thought it was a really good. I love anything like it's always basements are always creepy, aren't they? So anything used in the basement, I feel like it's great. We had a haunted house. Now we had a basement. Killer plants. I thought that was good. So, like I said, the TV episode is season 1, episode 11 and 12. I don't have a lot to say about the TV episode this time because I actually really enjoyed it. It's pretty truthful to the book. There's not really. It's like pretty dead on. It's just maybe like a little abbreviated in some parts, but I will say the brother is I think they clearly picked up this actor from like a theater troupe or something like that. He seemed like somebody who was very serious about acting and was very like, it's just, I don't know why I picked up on it. I think it's because I did a lot of theater when I was a kid, and there every now and then you'd meet somebody like that where they were very like, I'm saying professional, but I want to be like by the book, like the walk, turn, walk, speak with direct connotation, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It was very like, he was good. They were all good. Honestly, they were all really good, actually. I thought the dad was good and everything like that. The big switch here is that there is no axe in the end. It's like they use plant, like the thing that kills weeds, whatever it is. There's like the bucket and then the sprayer or whatever, and that's like, so it's all, when they spray the dad, it's like, shh, everything kind of like gets smoky and oh, I'm melting, sort of a thing. So, and I also like, I think in the very end of this one too, it's like a bunch of flowers that kind of turn and all start saying it. So it's almost like the ending's even like a little even more messed up than this one. So, I definitely recommend watching this one if you're interested. I thought it was really fun to watch. So really good. Yeah, that's it. Like I said, I didn't have a ton to say about that show, but, I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. Like I was going with this one, and you know what's next, don't you? A real classic, Monster Blood. Monster Blood is a staple of the Goosebumps franchise. There are 4 Monster Blood books in all. Monster Blood 4 is actually book number 62, so it's the last one of the original Goosebumps series, and it does have an episode of a TV show. It actually is 2 episodes of the show, and the second episode is like an original thing, but we'll get to that when we get to that one next time. So I've already read and actually made all my notes and everything like that. So yeah, so that's anybody wanting to hop in for Monster Blood, that's up next. I just want to say thank you, everybody, for listening and hanging in there with me as I read this one. And I would love feedback or just to start a conversation or I'd love to hear what you thought of the book. So if you're listening, you can send me an email at letsgetgoosebumps@gmail.com. There's no exclamation point in that email address, or you can get in touch with me on social media at Ryno, RYNO1185 on Twitter or Instagram are my 2 main things. I don't do Facebook, so don't even try over there. And yeah, and then obviously if you're watching on YouTube, just leave some comments, and if you like the video, thumbs up, like I said. And if you're listening or watching or whatever, subscribe, because like I said, it's going to come out as regimented as I can, but it might get a little crazy in there, and I don't want anyone to like miss out on one of your favorites. But then also, if you're subscribed, you can kind of like bookmark it as you go. So if you're not done reading the book, you can come back to it and stuff like that. It's like what I used to do when the TV show was on, but it was the 90s, so it was like I tried to I recorded everything I watched on videotapes, and I remember, I think it was either Piano Lessons Can Be Murder or it was Phantom of the Auditorium, that there was an episode, and I was literally halfway through the book, and I was like, oh no, this is this week's episode. And so I'm like trying to read, and I would get to a chapter, and that would be like right where the commercial break was, and I was like, well, I guess this is going to ruin the book for me. But so I always think that's funny. But anyway, thank you, everybody. I I don't know what else to say other than I'm having a blast. I hope you are too. I hope you're all doing well, that you're safe, happy, and healthy, and that you're enjoying this ride. And I will see you next time. Goodbye. I don't know why I said it like Borat.